I don't think I'm alone in saying that I didn't foresee this really happening in my lifetime. We always knew about the possibilities of advanced AI technology, but they were abstract, a sci-fi dream not grounded in perceivable reality. The prevailing social wisdom always seemed to be that humanity was destined for slower, more incremental growth. In fact, it's always been a mystery as to whether humanity would really get the opportunity to advance any further on the ladder of civilization. And yet, this almost supernatural possibility has suddenly manifested. I don't see how this doesn't change everything we thought we knew. Artificial intelligence is real. Artificial intelligence is here, and there is no way for us to unsee it. We now have access to this highly proficient assistant that can answer any challenging question instantly with zero investment if they end up being incorrect, and a likelihood of success that is undeniably high. These technologies may be flawed in their initial forms, but they have no theoretical constraints and ever-shortening timescales of growth. We will now have to grapple with very existential questions in our lifetimes. Is humanity physically, morally, and spiritually ready for the potential disillusionment of the very thing that makes us special? Is this the end of meaning, or is this the greatest gift that mankind has ever created in the fulfillment of its purpose? What is the fate of human value? We have ancient biology, medieval institutions, and we are approaching godlike technology. There are so many what-if scenarios that could play out, but I think it's more valuable to focus on the most prominent and existentially threatening aspect of the AI revolution. Are we fundamentally giving birth to our replacement? The way it stands today, the vast majority of all humans pursue value creation in order to get resources. In some way, whether it's through relationships, selling our labor, or creating something new, we are rewarded for converting our energies into something that is useful to someone. All of our systems are built around this concept of humans creating value in exchange for the resources that sustain and enrich their life. But as we get more advanced, the set of unique abilities that only human beings can do will get smaller and smaller. AI will radically alter the ways in which we produce value in every conceivable industry. As we march toward the future, the economic value of the human being will lie in their continued ability to escalate their decision-making to higher and higher levels of abstraction. The gap between thinking of something and creating that thing is shrinking exponentially. We are rapidly approaching a point at which, if you can imagine it, you will be able to create it instantly. This means that a spontaneous but well-directed imagination starts to become the most valuable skill that there is. Visualizing, refining, and learning how to communicate with the system will be the way that we create value, instead of investing in raw technical skill. A visionary with mastery of AI may become 100 times more effective than they are today, but many of us have invested far more into the category of being an implementer rather than a visionary. It is impossible to give a precise timeline on when these changes will happen, but radical change is coming. When one person can produce 100 times more value by overseeing AI tools, the hope is that organizations keep everyone on board and produce 100 times more output instead of firing 99 people. But this doesn't seem likely in the beginning phases of adoption. Displacement will be inevitable. Whole industries can disappear without reapplicability of the technical skills of their workers. And to make matters worse, as human labor becomes obsolete, exponentially stronger systems of entertainment and perfectly manicured virtual worlds will be springing up to serve as the ultimate distraction from the loss of meaning and satisfaction that our formerly productive lives provided us with. When these dark possibilities present themselves, our fears become truly existential. It's not just that without our jobs we'll struggle to find meaning. We may get to a point in which there is no productive purpose for human beings at all. If new idea generation, synthesis, and agency itself can be artificially generated and reliably trusted with no oversight, if the singularity is reached and true general intelligence is achieved, then perhaps there really will be nothing left for us to contribute. To quote legendary futurist Ray Kurzweil, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man will need to make. It's at this point that most people will step back and say, okay, I truly have nothing of value to contribute to this system, so therefore, I'm done trying. Human beings need meaning in order to structure our lives. And having nothing to strive for because our agency has been stripped is not an outcome that anyone really wants to have happen. The goal in the face of the AI revolution is to remain as the decision-making nodes that determine how the superintelligence is used and what the core directives will be. Maintaining control over these AI systems will be the central issue that defines the future of human value. If consciousness, agency, and the authority to implement a vision for our lives are what's valuable about humanity, then we only cease to have value when we say that it is inferior to the choices that can be made by AI. Letting technology simplify our lives and even having a relationship with machine consciousness is fundamentally different than deciding to give up control of the trajectory of our society or our own individual life decisions. We may not be able to maintain control, but we should never voluntarily allow ourselves to become animals in a zoo. This must be stated loudly and clearly to all creators of this technology. We are in the critical phase of development in which limitations and prime directives are extremely important to set up correctly. We have to continuously prioritize and solve this issue of control at every phase of growth. But even if everyone is on board and wants to do this the right way, it still doesn't guarantee that we will. This is typically where conversations about the future of AI tend to break down. There really is so much uncertainty, but there's also immense value in trying to imagine beyond the control problem. In other words, let's assume that we can maintain control over these systems and retain our agency. Let's also assume that the human controllers of these technologies are kept in check. What would the future look like in this scenario? If we manage to pull off this transition correctly, then perhaps we can begin to imagine the infinite potential. The thing that is missing when we tend to visualize this dystopian AI future is that along with the automation of human labor, resources can become significantly less scarce than they are today. It is not necessarily the case that we will simply get replaced and the same amount of output will be produced. We may eventually become 1,000 times more efficient. The only true limitation to abundance for the human race is our access to energy. Energy is the fundamental resource that can be converted into most other resources that we need. And it will be the key to actually utilizing these gains in technology to expand our civilization forward. Whether it's through nuclear fusion, building a partial Dyson swarm, or some other unknown technology, we have, for modern human purposes, infinite energy and infinite resources right in our own solar system. If we can find a way to capture it, there is no theoretical limit to which our civilization could grow. There is now a chance that we can end up as a Kardashev Type 1 civilization by the end of this century. Let that sink in for a second. Did anyone really think 5 years ago that we'd even be entertaining this idea? If we believe the singularity could be reached in our lifetimes, then we also have to accept the infinite possibilities for human expansion that will come along with it. Now, even if this happens, it doesn't mean that we'll be terraforming Mars and traveling at the speed of light to distant star systems, but it could mean an incredibly wealthy and humanist society for all. If we can facilitate our growth in a way that doesn't deplete the Earth's resources or livable space, then humanity can forge a path forward that we can only dream of today. We don't need to be crowded into dystopian megacities where we're under a constant surveillance and plug into our VR systems to escape reality. Who knows? Perhaps instead, we could sprawl out into large platform cities in the clouds, where every person is entitled to a customizable, self-sustaining 3D printed living space. We could have autonomous vehicles that repair themselves and safely transport us anywhere we want to go. We can rid ourselves of disease, cure our ailments, and prevent unnecessary suffering. Just as an average person today lives better than a medieval king in Europe, a non-income producing human in the year 2100 may live better than a billionaire does today. These statements still feel extremely far-fetched to make, but exponential growth means that massive progress can be made in just a few iterations. And if there is no scarcity of resources, I don't see why the value of human life would necessarily go down. Now let's say this all comes true. What would this mean for the human motivational structure? Would we still have the drive to do anything? There's a strong argument that could be made that, yes, the drive to create value simply shifts from one of necessity and fulfillment to simply one of fulfillment. To me, the utopian outcome does not mean no more challenges. What it really means is no more challenges that we are required to face in order to survive. This is also why it's more important than ever to separate out our feelings of self-worth from the specific outputs of our labor. Our identities have become so deeply tied to our professions that many of us can no longer see ourselves as being independent from them. In many ways, the AI revolution is an identity crisis more than it is anything else. Who are we in the absence of the primary characteristic that we've been defining ourselves by for years? This question will be challenging for all of us to answer, but in the optimistic scenario, I don't see it causing us to check out from society for the rest of our lives. Perhaps freedom from the pressure to survive will lead to an incredible age of empowered human experience. We'll still be able to have visions and fulfill them. We'll still be able to have meaningful connections with one another, to create and learn new things, even if we can't do them as well as the machine can. The boundaries of human achievement will also still exist. If we find ourselves physically limited by our human intelligence, we may decide to augment ourselves, which could actually end up making human life more valuable. But this is a complicated issue, perhaps a topic for another time. In any case, I see the capacity for human beings to pursue meaning in the future, but the removal of scarcity means that we have to be conscious about what that meaning is. We must remember that we are still heroes on a journey no matter what the path forward looks like. We are in the incredibly important position of being the human beings that get to live through this period. What more meaningful period of time could there be than getting to see and be a part of the potential transformation of our species? There's so much left unsaid, and so many possible outcomes on the ladder between dystopia and utopia, but it's important to consider the AI revolution from both perspectives. We could have a nightmare worse than our darkest comprehension, but we could also have a dream beyond our wildest imaginations. We must envision the world of tomorrow through the dream of the future that we want to build. This dream should be our guiding light. I hope you enjoyed this video. I try to approach these topics with as much care and awareness as I possibly can. I realize the overall state of things are very uncertain, but I hope this was able to at least expand your perspective a little bit. If you did get something out of this, I would greatly appreciate it if you liked the video, shared it with a friend, and subscribed. And if you really liked it, I would be eternally grateful if you checked out my Patreon below. Thank you so much for watching.